I took a lot of time and I sat with it and I cleared away all the opinions from everyone else and checked it with myself that this is what I want to do. I want to dive right in. And it's been a beautiful journey so far. I've been really fortunate to be able to build a beautiful practice from the start.
This is Therapist Clubhouse, a podcast for private practice entrepreneurs. I'm Annie Schusler. This week, I'm talking to April Snow, a private practice entrepreneur in San Francisco, California. Listen as we dive into what it's like to be a highly sensitive therapist and how she set up her practice in a way that honors her gifts. Welcome, April. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Annie. I am so excited to talk with you today.
So I want to talk to you about your entrepreneurial journey and in particular about your journey as a highly sensitive therapist. So your therapy practice is called Expansive Heart and your tagline is psychotherapy for introverts, highly sensitive people, and couples. Can you tell us about how you chose to work with introverts and highly sensitive people?
Absolutely. So it started in grad school. I knew I was introverted, of course. And then a friend from grad school talked to me about being highly sensitive, and I didn't know what that was. And I dove into it more, and I learned so much about myself through that lens. I was like, oh, I thought this was all because I was introverted, but my depth of processing, my ability to get easily overwhelmed, that's actually because I'm sensitive and I have this trait. And I was fortunate enough at the beginning of my training at a counseling center to work with a couple HSP clients. And I love the work. It just felt so in sync, so in alignment. So as I was moving into private practice internship, so I'm still an associate marriage and family therapist in private practice, I decided to take the leap, which was pretty scary at the time, to really niche myself and focus on working with HSPs solely. Because it felt like important work to do. I had a lot of healing in my own journey. Recognizing that I was a highly sensitive person, and then working with a therapist who knew about the trait and was highly sensitive herself. So I really wanted to give that back, and it's been phenomenal. It's been phenomenal. It's such healing work. It's so fulfilling. I get really emotionally touched by the work, and with individuals, with couples, and also with groups.
When you decided to take that leap, were there people who encouraged you? Was there anyone who said, like, what are you doing, April?
I would say I had the whole gamut of responses. So I was fortunate enough to have really supportive supervision. My supervisor was completely on board and helped me through that process, helped me believe in myself. I definitely had peers who didn't really understand, well, you really need to get more experience. You need to see a wider range of clients from the beginning. That just didn't feel accurate for me. It felt right just to dive in from the start.
Yeah. So you knew, and so you had to kind of weed through the advice that you were getting.
I did. I had to clear away the noise, essentially. And as you probably know since you're highly sensitive, that HSPs, what we do is we process and we think before we act. So we do it once, we do it right. And I feel like I brought that philosophy to my practice as well. I took a lot of time and I sat with it and I cleared away all the opinions from everyone else and checked it with myself that this is what I want to do. I want to dive right in. And it's been a beautiful journey so far. I've been really fortunate to be able to build a beautiful practice from the start. I've been in private practice now 1.5 years, and I probably have another year before I get licensed. And my practice is built. It's actually full right now. So it's been such a blessing, and the work has been incredible.
And that kind of doesn't surprise me because you're so aligned with what is unique about you and who you work best with. I think that's what really works and then ends up giving you the practice that you really want.
Exactly.
It's fantastic.
Yeah, being in alignment, you really get to attract those clients who you resonate the most with and you can do your best work with. And I really do see a lot of myself in my clients, and I can jump right in with them, and I empathize with them so much. Because I'm sensitive, and that's as you like to say, a superpower that we have. We have a lot of empathy. And B, I can really resonate with their journeys. And I feel like that really fast forwards the healing process when someone really gets you and you can really see them.
What's it like for you being a highly sensitive therapist in terms of the business side of things, the clinical side of things? What do you think is different for you as a highly sensitive therapist?
Yeah, this is a really important topic because me personally, and I've seen this in other highly sensitive therapists, it's really easy to get overwhelmed by the business side, by having to take care of all the different tasks from writing notes to marketing to networking. It can feel like a lot, and you could almost go into shutdown mode if you're not careful. So it's been all about creating structure and systems and outsourcing, delegating when I can. And then self-care is an important piece too. Throughout every day, I'm really mindful about taking breaks, eating a good lunch, doing my mindfulness practices, things like that, that help keep me regulated and energized.
Yeah. I've started doing just like a little practice that I've started doing is when I write down my to-do list every day, I have my self-care list at the top. So I kind of like divide the paper in half, and my self-care list is at the top where I have the things I know I need to do to keep myself regulated and nourished throughout the day and resilient. And then under that are my work tasks. And somehow that really helps me, crossing those self-care items off every day. It really helps me take them seriously. So yeah, I totally get what you're saying.
I love that you put them at the top of the list.
Yeah.
That you prioritize those because they often end up at the bottom or off of the list completely.
Yes. And it doesn't necessarily mean I do them all first, but it does mean I'm going to look at them every time I'm deciding what to do next. Yeah.
Right. You keep them front of mind.
Yeah. What kinds of struggles are you hearing? Because now you're really serving highly sensitive therapists.
Yeah, I started a Facebook group for highly sensitive therapists actually right after I started in private practice because I was feeling pretty isolated and alone. I didn't know anyone else who was working with highly sensitive clients. And my supervisor really encouraged me. She's like, "You've been thinking about this, just start the group, see what happens." And I did. And it's taken off. We're at about 600 therapists now and growing every week. And it's been a phenomenal experience to have that community for myself and then also to see other people feel less alone, right? Feel less, I want to say defective. That's the word that's coming up because people think there's something wrong with them. That they get more tired, that they're more easily overwhelmed, that they can't see as many clients. That's the biggest piece. Funny, there's a thread in my group around how many clients you see every week, and everyone's like, well, ideally, 8 to 10, 10 to 12. And then I've seen other threads where it's like 25 to 40. So it's interesting the difference in that. And giving ourselves permission to see less clients. Also important to know our worth and charge more money to balance that out.
Yeah.
That's a big struggle.
Okay. So that's interesting. I wonder I think probably that the people in my orbit tend toward being more highly sensitive. And that makes sense to me what you're saying, that I also see these like 25, 30 as being the idea of a full private practice. And then most of the therapists who I talk to are really capping out way lower than that and finding, at least once they start to actually fill up, are finding it's got to be way lower than that in order to be resilient and to feel really capable of being the best therapist in sessions. Yeah. So I think that's kind of like it's like a secret. It shouldn't be a secret.
It shouldn't be a secret that it's okay to see less clients and you can still consider yourself full. I consider myself full at 12 clients.
Good.
I'm completely content and full, and I have a higher fee, so that works for me.
Yeah. What is your fee?
Sure. So I currently charge $175 to $250 per session, ranging from 50 to 75 minutes.
Okay, great. How do you feel about your fee? What was that journey like?
Right now, I feel amazing about it, and I've actually been encouraged to raise it even higher. But that was a long journey to get there. I started off when I started my private practice at $120, and that felt so high to me coming from a low fee center where we started at $20 a session. So I would practice saying it out loud. 120, my fee is 120.
Good.
And then I slowly realized that I was offering something very unique, especially for San Francisco. At this time now, I found more therapists that are working with HSPs, but no one that really specializes or hyper focused on it in the same way that I am. So I was like, it's okay to charge more.
Hmm.
Charge more per session. So then I bumped it to 150 and then I quickly bumped it to 175 and then my longer sessions are 250. And now that feels low, to be
Yeah.
honest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Mhm. Which feels magnificent to say that, but it was definitely a journey around getting comfortable with my money stuff and looking at my mindset and how I look at my own worth as a therapist and what I can bring to the table.
Hmm.
Yeah, it's quite a journey to get there, especially for sensitive people. We're so caring, we're so empathetic. We want to be of service, and we can be, but we
Hmm.
also have to take care of ourselves so we can show up with our strengths, our superpowers in the room.
Yeah. And so that we can stick with it, right? Like we
So we
we
can stick
could
with
charge
it.
less and then burn out.
Yes, and
Yeah.
I have already seen highly sensitive peers drop out. I've seen
Mm.
people in my therapist group who are contemplating leaving the profession, and that just breaks my heart because these are amazing therapists.
Yeah.
Just finding a different model.
Tell me more about that, the idea of finding a different model.
So we need a more sustainable model,
Hmm.
right? I think we're moving into this high output type of therapy where you see as many clients as you can per week, back to back to back, and charge less money per session. That's not going to work for a highly sensitive therapist or most therapists.
Yeah.
Right? So I love quality over quantity
Quality
always.
over quantity. Yeah. And
Yeah.
looking at like for each person, what is it that really feeds you and what is it that drains you? And I think what you're
Exactly.
saying about number of clients is a huge one that
Mm-hmm.
so many of us, especially those of us that are highly sensitive, are going to feel like there's just this number that
Mm-hmm.
I kind of cap out and I just
Exactly.
can't be a good therapist
Mm-hmm.
past that point, or at least
Right.
I pay at home if I go past that
Yeah.
point. And
Right.
then there's looking at other creative ways to
Mm-hmm.
change the way we work. Like, can we be doing some small group work? Can we be
Mm-hmm.
doing some online work that might be, you know,
Mm-hmm.
not draining in quite the same way, depending on how we set up our schedule, but just really being creative and honest with ourselves about what actually works for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. I think part of that model is a knowing what your number is, your ideal
Hmm.
number is, where you see that many clients, but you have some left over for when you get home for your
Yeah.
family, for yourself. That's important. You need a little bit left over in the tank by the end of the day for you. And then also focusing on who does feed you the most, who can you do your best work with? Not just seeing that number per week, but seeing that number of ideal clients
Who?
perhaps.
Yes.
Exactly the who. So it's the
Absolutely.
how many and then the who. And then another piece I think is also essential, and I see this a lot in the highly sensitive therapist community, is doing some other type of work that nourishes us.
Mm-hmm.
I'm convinced that we can't just do therapy because we are creative people. We need a lot of depth. We need a lot of, our brains are very intricately wired. I think another line of work is really important for us to feel wholly satisfied.
Interesting. And for you, is that working with highly sensitive therapists or is that something else?
I'm finding that that is the case,
Yeah.
building community, building resources for highly sensitive therapists, writing. I really love writing and I want to do more of it. That's as
Hmm.
I start to delegate and outsource more of my tasks, I'm making more room for writing because I find it really fulfilling. And it's a beautiful way to put information out into the world that's really needed. To validate, to create resources, to help people understand that they're not alone and there are ways that you can live a different life and
Hmm.
feel more fulfilled.
Yeah. And with writing, what do you find works for you in terms
Mhm.
of building it into your life?
Hmm. Definitely consistency. So
Mm.
I've now set aside time every week where that's my writing time. So I get into a flow. I feel like that's, for me, that's really important. I really thrive with structure and predictability and
Me
having,
too.
yeah, and having time to flow in and flow out is really important. So giving myself more time than I need.
Hmm. How many hours a week do you give yourself for writing?
I would say for one blog post, I need about 4 hours, which I know is long for most people.
No, I don't think so. If we think of, I mean, that was definitely true for me
Hmm.
when I was writing articles a lot, because you need, if you think about the whole arc of writing something, even if it's short, there's you've got to have time to brainstorm, to go
Yes,
through your whole process to figure out like what am I saying here that feels like the most important, and then shaping it,
exactly.
and not necessarily being able to sit down for 4 hours straight, but
Right.
giving yourself
Exactly.
some room.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah, because there is a lot of my personal process that I put into it. All of my blog posts have been inspired by something that's happened to me or a point of self-reflection. So it goes deeper than just pumping out a blog article just to do it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
So what's next for highly sensitive therapists, the group that you started?
Yeah, that's a good question. Definitely continuing to build a safe and supportive community. I've been really blessed to have an amazing collective of therapists in the group that are really supporting each other and showing up for each other. And then taking that out into the world would be the next step. So as you know, you're going to be speaking at our highly sensitive therapist retreats. That's happening this July in Santa Cruz. And I want to do more of that. That is for any sensitive person, finding community is most important to validate who you are, that your trait is real, that you're not alone and how you feel, how you navigate the world. And that's also true for therapists. So how we approach our work and how we feel while we're doing our work, knowing that we're not alone in that, will help us stay grounded in ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the next step, is finding more opportunities to gather in person, whether that's at retreats. And along with my co-facilitator, Beth Dawson, we're thinking about doing a highly sensitive therapist conference so we can really expand the
Wonderful.
awareness of the trade and take that to a bigger audience.
Yeah, and you got Elaine Aaron
We
for the
did.
retreat.
We did. We were
So
so,
exciting.
so excited about that. And I actually talked about this with a few other people, and they asked me, well, how did that happen? And I think it was just, again, that being in alignment, being authentic. Just
Mm-hmm.
we sent her an email and a video just telling her why this felt really important to us, this work around supporting sensitive therapists and why it's needed. And of course, she understands that. And it just felt like it was meant to be.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's every time I've sent a video invitation to someone
Mm-hmm.
for anything I wanted them to collaborate with me on, it's worked.
Yes. There's something about it's more
Yeah.
personal.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it shows that you're doing something extra and that you're,
Mm-hmm.
you're really wanting to genuinely connect. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, that's it. Because there is this genuine motivator inside of me, and I wanted that to come through. And that doesn't always
Mhm.
come through on the written page.
I also, when I saw some of what you had planned for the conference, I just felt like, oh, this is like they really get it. The fact that you
Yeah.
said single occupancy rooms,
Yes.
I was just like,
Yes.
that's it.
That was the number one goal. No matter what
Wow.
else we did for the retreat, that was the number one goal, because we had connected with some HSTs before planning the retreat, and that was clearly the number one need. And if I check in with myself, that's absolutely true. Because you need time. It's not about being antisocial or not wanting a roommate. It's
Mm-mm.
more about having the space and time to decompress, to process, to integrate what you're learning at the retreat, to take that stimulation level way down at the end of the
Mhm.
day. So yeah, it took us a long time to find a location that could offer us a high volume of single occupancy rooms, but UC Santa Cruz came through and they were more than happy to help us do that. So I'm so excited to be able to offer that. That was so important for me.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And yeah, every time I've gone to something like a conference or a retreat and the expectation has been that you're going to share a room, I always feel really bad in a way that I
Mm-hmm.
don't want to do that because
You
like you
know?
said, it's not that I'm not excited to get to know the people because I totally am, but yeah, I absolutely need to decompress
Mm-hmm.
and to be able to count on that time away from everybody, and the idea of 24/7 interaction makes me insane. Like
Yes.
I can't do it.
It's
So
not good for
yeah,
us.
no.
Yeah, it's okay.
And that's totally okay. And I just loved that that was in there. But yeah, what else do you have planned? There's so much
Mhm.
that you're kind of understanding about the needs of HSTs that I think is going to be really validating.
Yeah, I feel like definitely have an edge because I am an HST and I
Yeah.
understand what that's like at a core level. So doing this very thoughtfully so that every day is spaced out with
Mhm.
lots of room for downtime and reflection. So we're only doing 2 workshops a day. That felt really important to do. Plus a yoga class every morning that's all about unwinding the nervous system. So we have a highly sensitive yoga therapist on board. We'll be doing subtle touch massage. We're near nature if people really need that to refuel. All meals and everything is provided. So we want people to be able to come and just not worry about the details, feeling
Mhm.
like very safe and supported in their structure and routine. That was really important because I've been to other events where things felt a little bit shaky and unpredictable, and that made me feel a little bit anxious or unsettled. So I want people to really feel like their nervous systems can just settle down and they can relax during the time that we're fully taking care of them.
I love it. I love it. So it's all aligned.
Yeah, and a mix of professional and personal activities, and then also it being restorative but also engaging. So it's all about balance across the board.
Yeah. And that makes me think of, when you were saying balance, it makes me think of the way that we need to live our lives as HSTs in terms of, and if anybody is like, what is this HST? We're just, you probably figured it out, but we're talking about like highly sensitive people, highly sensitive therapists. Makes me think of marketing and how there's this idea, just like the idea of having tons and tons of clients is necessary. I think there's this idea out there of we've got to do all the marketing activities. If we're going to be successful, we've got to do every single one. And it's confusing because we'll see people who are really, doing a great job with social media. We'll see people who are doing a great job with blogging or with, doing things like webinars, networking, public speaking. And it's easy to forget that no one's doing all of it.
Right. They're doing that well because they're focused.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. So as for all of us, but especially for highly sensitive therapists, I think it's so important. It's okay to try all the things.
Yes.
Maybe one at a time, but you absolutely shouldn't expect yourself to do all of the things. And so it sounds like that's true for you, that you're focusing on a few different things. And I'm imagining like you've got this amazing Facebook group. I'm on there. I love it. It's really supportive. I'm imagining that you're not doing all the things on social media.
No, I'm not. In the beginning, I took time to set up my different platforms. I did it one at a time. So I started with Facebook, then I added Twitter, and then I did Instagram, and then eventually I added Pinterest. But I only focused on building one at a time, getting comfortable with each platform. And at this point, it's on autopilot. So I've set up each system so everything is branded and consistent. And then I link them all together. And now I have an auto scheduler. So things post and I'm not even aware of what posts during the day. But I took some time and I use Smarter Queue, which I love. It's easy to use. I find it pretty intuitive, and things just post for me. And then if there's something new that comes along, I might jump in and post. But for the most part, it's just happening on its own, which is beautiful. And it frees me up for time for engaging in the group because that's something I really enjoy. And then also I spend other time writing. So my two main focuses right now are just spending more time writing because that's something I want to get deeper into. And then also being part of my community.
Excellent. Are there any other Facebook groups that you participate in?
Let's see. So I'm in Selling the Couch and Allison Pereira's Abundance Group. Those are probably my two main go-tos. And then I'm also in a couple of groups for highly sensitive people.
Cool. Yeah. But I'm imagining your focus is your group.
Absolutely. That's where my people are.
Yeah. Well, that's kind of like what I do is I go on Facebook. I have groups that are for my the people who are in my program and the people who've graduated my program. And those are the places I always go.
Yes.
And then it's more optional whether I'm going to go other places. And it depends on my energy and what I want to do. But yeah, I think it's so important for people to know that it's not necessarily about being everywhere all the time.
Yeah, you don't have to be. Just show up where you get the most fulfillment and engagement. And I think just as we were talking about with marketing, when you're engaging on Facebook, give yourself permission just to focus on one or two areas that give you the most or you feel the most enjoyment from being in that community. I think that'll go a lot farther than diluting yourself.
Completely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So April, if you could time travel to the start of your private practice, what would you tell the April of that time?
This is such a good question. There's one piece I would say around being more authentic. When I first started out, I was a little bit more reserved and I was trying to put myself into a mold of what I saw others doing and being. So I would say definitely use my voice more. Don't be afraid to be more authentic and show up as I really am, because as I've learned, that's what the world really needs to hear. And I would say that for a lot of different therapists, show up as you are because that's what your clients are needing. And then there's another piece around, I'd say, even though I didn't have a roadmap of where I was going, just reminding myself that I will get there. Myself permission to be patient and that it does take time, but I can get there. Because, built something from scratch and sometimes that can feel impossible or like it's going to take forever, but that's not necessarily the case. I would say just kind of let go, lean into your practice, and things will start to come together and build. It's just a matter of time.
I
So I
love
guess,
that.
yeah, just
Yeah.
trusting myself and the process.
Yeah. And that you can have, like, it sounds like you've had a roadmap. You've always been, I mean, it sounds like you've worked really hard,
Mm-hmm.
but that you've followed what felt like it was going to be most important. Like you've followed, I'm
Yeah.
feeling like it's time for me to create this community. I'm feeling like it's time
Yes.
for me to embrace this niche. And now it's
Yes.
time for me to do this retreat more than
Mm-hmm.
like you had a 5-year plan and you were going to exactly follow it.
Right. I definitely had a 5-year plan, but it was very broad. The
Yeah.
specifics came more from intuitive hits. Like, this is just
Mm.
where I'm feeling like I'm meant to be going. Just like when people ask me why I became a therapist, it's because of what I'm meant to be doing. And why am I working with highly sensitive clients? Because that's where I'm meant to be. It just feels like I'm in alignment with what I'm here for.
Mm.
Yeah. And trusting that, that's where the magic happens. Yeah. Things feel a lot more effortless when you lean into that purpose.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
Mhm.
even if it's scary at times.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
it's scary.
Yeah.
It's definitely scary, leaning into that unknown and not knowing what's going to be on the other side, but it has paid off so beautifully.
Hmm. Is there anything about your like 5-year plan that you'd be willing to share with us?
Mm-hmm. Definitely when I started out, my 5-year plan was at the end of the 5 years to have a full practice, to be licensed, to have a well-defined niche, to be recognized for the clientele that I work with. And actually, a lot of that's already
I
happened.
know. I'm like, well, you're there, April.
A lot of that's already happened. So next on the list would be definitely writing a book. That's
Nice.
that's my plan. I really want to advocate for this traits. I want to be a leader. I want to show people that you can be strong and sensitive and show up big
Mm.
in the world. That you don't have to live a life that other people think you have to live. You can blaze your own trail. That's my goal. Yeah.
Thank you. That's great. So what is the best place for therapists to find you and throw compliments at you? And I would add, learn about the conference too. I mean, learn about the retreat.
Yeah, definitely. So for the therapists out there, you can find me at sensitivetherapist.com. So
Okay.
there you'll find a link to the Facebook group we've been talking about. And there's info about the upcoming retreat, which you can also find at hstretreat.com.
Excellent. Thank you, April.
Thank you, Annie. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, for me too. We're going to do this again and dive in even deeper.
Sounds great.
Thanks for listening to Therapist Clubhouse. Want to take your practice to the next level? Head over to coachingwithannie.com and click on free trainings to get started. There we go.